morning. Good morning, all. I can see lots of people participating to this webinar. So we have two speakers today. My name is Jean-Claude Pichot, and I look after international markets at Ibexa. Of course, UK being a central market for us. We have been for 20 years in this market as a provider of digital experience platforms with clients like The Economist or William Reed in the UK. And I'm joined in this webinar by our partner Equimedia, who is a full-service digital marketing development agency, and represented by Ross Britton, who is a website experience director at Equimedia. So to be fully transparent, Ibexa and Equimedia have a partnership. This means that Equimedia teams have been trained and certified, of course, on Ibexa products, Ibexa platform. So today we are going to address one topic which I personally find very interesting, which is disruption, and more precisely self-disruption in the B2B space as a key to growth. What is disruption? Of course, we have this understanding from Clay Christensen studies about disruption. It's mostly replacement or substitution of demand, of one demand by another demand. And this doesn't mean necessarily cannibalization. It often means a big increase in the size, in the scope, in the surface of the market, as exemplified, for example, by the disruption of the mobile phone by the smartphone industry. And of course, it opened the door to new entrants and to new players who are going to participate to this disruption. So when this disruption is self-organized, that can mean growth for its participants. And we are going to see how direct to consumer, how B2C can be self-disruptors for B2B ecosystems, and in turn expand the market and generate growth for those ecosystems. So for success cases first that I will present in B2C2B, B2B2C, B2B2Pro, and then a move into direct-to-consumer with Ross from Equimedia, with practical considerations, what to do and what to avoid also when going direct-to-consumer if you're a B2B business. So I spoke a bit about Ibexa. This is the list of our clients, and what we see is that the B2B market is expanding faster than the B2C one, with the client base expanding quite fast in multiple verticals like industrials, appliances, professional services, and lots of different sectors which are actually building websites and expanding their business models using digital platforms. So how are they doing that? We often see the same pattern happening with those client organizations, whereby they start with a full physical organization, basically generating and closing sales through meetings and eventually on the golf course. But with the push into digital of everything, especially with the recent acceleration, we still see joint patterns in three stages. The first one is facilitating the life of B2B buyers by providing consistent brand across countries, across territories, across languages, of course, and facilitating search, facilitating the experience of buyers, for example, through product finders or store locators. The second one is, of course, to empower your customer by providing customer portal, partner portals, where clients can access their information, details about their accounts, and eventually change and eventually create specific requests from those portals. And the final stage, of course, which is a fully digital B2B sales, is when a full B2B commerce website is at play, meaning that the entire sales process from attractiveness to closing can be entirely conducted online. And of course, there is one direction, but various speeds and many routes. We see clients who take several years from 1 to 3, and some of them can go there in 6 months. Some of them will go to stage 3, but some of them can also actually stop at stage 1 or stage 2. And now, how does B2C, what has B2C to do in this type of ecosystem? In fact, the pure B2B type of transaction is only one part of the entire system, of the entire story. So what you can see on the top here. You have also, of course, in the B2B ecosystem, a component which is the direct to consumer, whereby an e-commerce website can be used by a seller to directly address consumers. This will be explained by Ross. But you also have other dimensions. You can have, of course, different stages or different intermediaries like resellers and local agents, which are generating transactions, but also receiving influence or receiving requests from the final consumers themselves. So either directly or via local agents. And eventually this ecosystem of reseller or agents can have an interaction with local integrators, local installers. For example, if you are installing appliances, and those integrators and installers also have very strong, usually they convey a lot of influence when it comes to the choice made by consumers regarding the size of the equipment that they're going to select, the brand, the prices. The influence is also a very important dimension of those ecosystems. So we're going to see different examples, practical cases and success stories of clients who have implemented those B2C to B, B2B2C, B2B2 Pro type of strategy. And then we will see the D2C case with Ross. So one example we like pretty much in this B2C to B type of business is the case of Essilor. It's interesting that Essilor has a quite strong B2C brand because they have the leadership position when it comes to lenses. And those lenses actually are sold through a network of opticians. And this is where the B2C is mixed with the B2B. It's first reusing the brand. So the consumers are attracted to the website in order to, because of the brand and the corporate campaigns, advertising campaigns developed by Essilor throughout Europe. We are talking here of 18 countries. And the next thing that the brand wants to convey is, of course, simplicity, performance, innovation. Those are core attributes of the brand. And this is why you can see on the website that you can actually configure and build your own lens in a custom way using their product configurator. And again, this is where we see the synergies. It's all those interactions will be saved actually for the B2B ecosystem, because each interaction will be provided with a call to action, leaving contact details in order to provide this information to a local optician. And of course, the local optician will be part of the customer journey, because if you, for example, enter any address or name of city, you will get, of course, via geolocation, the list of point of sales, where you can actually follow up on your omni-channel process that you will have started online with your design of lenses, and then you can actually test and get the same experience in a very continuous way by going to the local optician. So this is one example of a strong brand in the B2C space, generating awareness and good customer experience via the website, and then generating leads and actually visits and physical traffic to their ecosystem of opticians throughout the world. So this example of Essilor is also a bit emulated by this brand, which is a German brand called Abus. I'm sure I know that bicycle riding is all the rage, and also bicycle stealing is a bit all the rage. So Abus is the solution for this type of situation. And what is provided here is a website which is extremely focused on the products themselves. So for example, you will go and find the log, And the experience that they provide in this space, for example, is for going, for example, to one specific product and providing services. So, for example, many of us lose the keys, and with Abus, you have the capacity, for example, to retrieve a key for your lock and order the key online. And this service experience also benefits, of course, their B2B ecosystem, because again, every interaction will be then placed to a dealer that will be a local company that can provide a service and provide additional products. It's important to understand that they don't do any B2C sell online. They have a B2B e-commerce website, which is for a transaction between Abus and their resellers and point of sales. But there is no direct to consumer commerce in this situation. So again, we have a strong brand, a strong B2C brand with a lot of orientation towards service and innovation. And all this is meant to benefit to the B2B ecosystem, to the dealers that will receive leads and visits directly stemming from the website. Another interesting example, we have 4 of them, is Atlantique. Atlantique is a provider of thermal equipment for the house. They have specific brands like Thermo in France, Ideal or Hamsworthy in the UK. And what they have done in France is a specific site solely in French to provide support to installers, retailers, integrators. So as we saw, those local participants are extremely active and participants when it comes to selecting a product, to recommending a size, performance, and selecting the right solution for each consumer. And hence the importance for Atlantique to develop a web property which addresses the needs of those installers and integrators. So again, this is a specific web property only targeting integrators. There is another website which is in preparation for the Thermo brand. That will be selling directly to consumers. So this will be an example of a direct-to-consumer approach for this Thermo brand. And this will be another example of synergies between B2C and B2B. This will be launched in 2022, the B2C website for Thermo. And let's take a final example of CMS Law. CMS Law is, we are moving away from industry and we are in a professional services space. This is the one of the top 5 law companies globally. And what do you propose when you are a law company? It's mostly about skills management and knowledge management. So the website now is really a kind of knowledge management base where you can find for certain keywords everything about people, expertise, location, and publications. And again, this is a way for the company to generate activity and to generate leads, in fact, for the lawyers, because on any specific topic, like if you take a 5G vision, you will have access to contents. Contents can be extremely rich, videos, publications, articles, as we saw, and then you have direct connection to those who either manage the activity or have eventually written or contributed to those contents. So it's a direct interaction between consumers, potential clients, and editors, which is created by this website. And this is a strong driver of the growth of CMS Law. They saw their overall activity traffic grow by more than 20% when they implemented this multi-country and multilingual website. It's interesting to see that, in fact, if you look at any type of topic, you will see that the entire organization is being represented from Colombia to Switzerland, Ukraine. So it's really an extremely integrated presentation of the capabilities and the contents of the company, who in turn generate activity for those individual people who are providing this expertise. So as a wrap-up, we've seen different clients. They all use the same Ibexa platform, which is a composable platform with content, experience, and commerce capabilities that can adjust with the speed and the route of transformation that the client is undergoing. And just as a wrap up, let's take a few takeaways. Why do we disrupt B2B sales channels with those of business to consumer? Well, first, it's to avoid uncontrolled competition that could occur with fake products or other activities that could be creating cannibalization. Of course, it increases, as we say, the brand awareness, because there is a creation of a positive feedback loop between participants of the B2B ecosystem and the B2C consumers. It, of course, also generates influence. As we saw, lots of people are just influencers, but nevertheless, extremely important participants. And finally, it drives the growth of the ecosystem by generating leads to resellers, integrators. Those people, those participants, maybe would be too small companies to benefit from those leads, wouldn't have the brand or the digital power to create those leads. So they benefit massively from getting those leads and visits from the main brand itself. And finally, the next topic that Ross is going to address is the direct to consumer. Why would you do it also? Of course, as we said, it's to support the B2B branding strategy, but more importantly, you could reach new market segments, diversify sales channels. And if you can see some erosion driven by technology or geography, direct to consumer could be a way to mitigate this erosion and eventually provide higher margins by cutting directly to the consumer into the ecosystem. So the how-to part of this presentation will be shown by Ross. Up to you, Ross.
Thanks, Jean-Claude. So yeah, obviously taking you through everything you can do within the Ibexa ecosystem and kind of why self-disruption is important. What we'll cover now is really 5 key considerations when going D2C. Now, there's obviously way more considerations than just 5. However, we're going to cover off what we think are the top 5 things to consider when you are looking to pivot from purely B2B or B2B2C into going direct to consumer, because there is a lot to think about. And obviously, because of the pandemic, a lot more businesses have tried to pivot, some successfully and some not, into going D2C. And we've worked with lots of clients that have done that. So hopefully we'll try and impart some knowledge to you today in terms of some key things to do and some things to avoid. Your next slide, thank you. So a little bit about Equimedia and who we are. So Jean-Claude said, so my name is Ross, and I'm the Web Experience Director at Equimedia. And as you can see in the middle there, our expertise crosses a number of different digital systems. So my area of expertise is in digital experience, in website design, development, conversion rate optimization, and analytics. However, within the business, we also do customer acquisition through media, through SEM, and ensuring that we have a very audience-centric customer first approach. We've worked with lots of different B2B companies over the years, and still do, ranging from big global companies like Eaton, working with Allianz globally, SaaS, various life sciences businesses, and lots of D2C commerce brands as well. So we've got a nice, rich experience across a variety of different platforms that we can apply some knowledge to. And of course, relationships are super important alongside good experience and good expertise. That's why we're working with a DXP partner like Ibexa that have a partner suited for growth, have a platform, suited to growth. And obviously we're partners with all of the key big platforms out there, like being a Google Premier partner, for example. But our focus really is on B2B businesses and helping grow B2B businesses over a short space of time. So one of the key things to bear in mind is that D2C solutions now are more accessible than ever before. And these are the 5 key points we're going to cover off today in terms of making sure your D2C roadmap is ready for success. And D2C is obviously multifaceted. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. But these are the 5 things that we think are very important. And when you get these 5 things working in synchronicity, you are likely to have a winning formula, and they're all mutually beneficial. So it's really important to make sure you are doing all of these things, at least at a very basic level, to get started. So what we're going to do now is dive into each of these 5 things in a little bit more detail, and of course, do put questions in the Q&A as we go along. I'll be more than happy to answer those when we get to the end. So one of the obvious things that everyone says, but is super important, is you need to identify the right audience with the right intent. Now, identifying the right audience is one challenge in of itself, but identifying intent is very different. And that's one of the key things when you differentiate your B2B and your D2C strategy. And one of the questions we often get is how do you make sure you don't say, cannibalize your B2B activity with your D2C strategy? And the answer is make sure you're very audience specific and you understand the intent of different audience segments, and then start treating them differently from their first exposures. That's why something like Ibexa is very powerful, where you can start to build out different personas, different journeys, different omni-channel strategies based on your audience intent and your audience interactions. And one of the challenges is, of course, that with so much exposure opportunity in the marketplace, the opportunity for wastage is also high. So one of the things we often say to our new B2B customers that want to go to D2C is don't make assumptions about who you think your audience are. You need to make sure you're leveraging your own data, but you will find out some things that you didn't expect about your potential D2C customers. So you need to understand your audience. You need to understand where they're operating, where they're making decisions, and what motivates them. And you need to really stand out to those people. You know, what are they seeking out? Are they seeking out value? Are they swayed by reviews? How much research do they do? You really need to test memorable content ideas and memorable design ideas. So having an audience-centric strategy, although it sounds like a very simple thing to do, actually the detail behind that and ensuring you have very tailored strategies, very tailored journeys, omni-channel strategies for all your different audience segments is really important to make sure you firstly don't cannibalize your B2B traffic, but also ensuring that you are providing the best possible journey you can through to conversion. And one of the things I would say at this point as well is we are actually offering 2 free mini audience profiling audits to any new potential clients at the moment as well. So if you are interested in this, if you are interested in understanding what your potential D2C audience might be, please do go to the Equimedia website, equimedia.co.uk, go through the standard contact form, and obviously say you've been on the webinar. We'd be more than happy to have an initial chat and see if there's any way we can help you with some initial profiling to get you started on your D2C journey. Now, measurement and attribution is very important. Now, obviously, you can't measure success or failure if you don't have your single line of truth. And we often say you need to find your single line of truth. Now, measurement and attribution for D2C businesses, we work with lots of big e-commerce D2C businesses and some B2B businesses, and sales attribution in 2022 and beyond is going to be a big challenge. So, as third-party cookies are retired, as first-party data becomes everything, your CRM data becomes everything, which we'll come on to a little bit later in terms of building brand loyalty and growing LTV as well. You need to make sure that you have thought about your ongoing sales attribution strategy. And the key thing is to look beyond last click attribution. And it is linked back quite neatly to what Jean-Claude was saying earlier around brand awareness. Actually, your D2C brand awareness will have a positive impact on your B2B sales. You drive consumer demand and that will drive business demand as well. But you need to understand the role different channels are playing. So it's not just a case of understanding how you make sales, how you track certain elements on site. That's all fairly straightforward. It's more around how you attribute success to specific channel activities across your omni-channel strategy and what role they're playing in the journey as well. For example, we recently did a case study, we recently did some activity for a client, whereby we ran some YouTube activity. Now, the YouTube activity itself doesn't drive enormous amounts of direct sales, but through setting up a good attribution and good sales attribution, we were able to see that YouTube brand awareness activity influenced a 27% uplift in SEM sales through PPC and organic search. So this helps you make good decisions around which channels are actually going to drive on-site traffic and drive sales. And that full view through from awareness, consideration, decision, and retention through your standard marketing funnel journey, and understanding what role each channel plays at each stage of the journey. Because it's not acceptable to just go straight for lead generation activity or go straight for the sales activity without building trust in your brand. We know that it takes around 3 to 4 exposures to a brand before a potential customer even engages. So that level of detail needs to be considered. And another good example of that actually is, say, programmatic display activity. So some of you may run programmatic display activity to help boost your brand awareness. And that's a great example of something that we know has a strong influence on, say, SEM, on brand searches. So yeah, think about what role you think measurement and attribution plays. And just before we go on to this, one thing I would say is if you go to our website again and search for a blog called Finding Your Line of Truth in 2022, there's a little bit more detail in there around what we're talking about in terms of sales attribution and some potential things you can start doing now to plan for that, because it is coming and it's really important you start to plan now for how you're going to attribute sales in the future. Now, of course, you've found the right audience. You've spent lots of time constructing a very detailed, audience-centric, intent-based marketing strategy, omnichannel marketing strategy. You understand the role each channel plays. You're able to measure success and failure in a strong way. What you don't want to do is obviously drive traffic into a site that doesn't convert. It's leaky bucket syndrome and spending lots of money on really good traffic driving activity and then having an on-site experience that doesn't fit the bill. And that's where something like the Ibexa content management system and various and all the DXP elements within that come into their own to ensure you have a seamless online experience. Taking a drink of water, sorry. But you of course need to give consumers a reason to purchase. So this is one thing we often say when going D2C is, of course, D2C is very challenging in a market where, if you're trying to sell D2C, and let's take Amazon as an example, we know they can ship things super fast and super cheap compared to a lot of other people. So actually, how are you going to stand out and make people want to buy? We know, and we'll come on to this, we're coming on to fulfill expectations, that people are willing to pay more for next day delivery. We know that free delivery, next day delivery, expectations are set exceptionally high on that. So we need to make sure that you actually know why somebody would purchase through your D2C site. So don't go and spend lots of money on developing a fantastic D2C experience where you're looking to drive online sales, then actually you're not giving your customers a reason to purchase versus your traditional distribution channels, or traditional sales channels, I should say, sorry. And one of the things to also think about is that online experience should take away pain points. So have a think about what pain points you currently have in your current distribution, in your current sales strategy. What pain points would a new e-commerce platform solve? And think about how your D2C experience might help solve that. And alongside that, one of the key things we say is don't accept low conversion rates. It seems like a strange thing to say that, because it seems obvious, but a lot of people go, well, we can't, we're driving lots of traffic to site. We don't know how to increase our conversion rates by 1%, 2%, 3%, and they're not quite sure where to optimize to. And this is, again, something we help our clients with in terms of conducting detailed user journey analysis, understand our entry routes, our journeys through the site, what pages and what content they're touching. It helps influence decision-making, and will drive visits to a basket, will drive visits to a form, will drive visits to purchase, and whether they're dropping out on that e-commerce journey as well. And you need to understand those dropout points, because again, it fits back to our first point around audience-centric content strategies and marketing strategies. If you've got 3 audience-specific strategies, 3 unique on-site user experiences, but one of those has a particular dropout point, you're not fitting the intent of that user and their shopping needs of that user through that journey, just slightly different to the others. So you need to be really on the ball, ensuring that you optimize your on-site experiences fit for those individual profiles. Now, even small conversion rate improvements can make a massive difference. So again, a recent case study we did for a client is we did all of that detailed user journey analysis off the back of our audience profiling and the measurement and attribution. And we identified some small areas on site that hadn't previously been touched, that if we just increased conversion by 1%, it equaled an extra £10,000 a month, which is very quick and efficient ROI. So getting into the detail of that data, understanding your pain points, and just even small conversion rate increases will make a big difference. So don't be afraid to spend the time doing that. And when we talk about reasons to buy, it's the standard things of special offers, brand loyalty bonuses, extra fast delivery, And if you're an up-and-coming brand or a brand biting at the heels of a market leader, you need to think about what's going to tip you over the edge to make them want to purchase through you. So if you are struggling with your on-site conversion rate issues, do get in touch and we can see where we can help do some analysis and identify where we can improve things. And if a DXP like Ibexa would be a wonderful platform to help solve that challenge as well. So you've done all the hard work of converting a user. You've done a lot of detailed work on those first 3 steps, but actually we know that customer retention now is more important than it ever has been before, especially given the cost of acquisition. So again, as I mentioned at the very start, with the pivot during the pandemic of people wanting to sell more D2C because they had no choice, their previous distribution channels were shut or closed or unavailable, the cost of acquisition has also gone up massively as well. So we know that the acquisition costs across PPC, display, social are up 60% combined over the course of 2021. That's a massive increase. Competition breeds more expensive prices. And of course, the likes of Google and Facebook and the various other acquisition channels will make the best for themselves out of those market conditions and make extra money off the back of that. But it helps heighten the need to make sure that your brand loyalty schemes are in place, which again is why something like Ibexa is great, because you're able to hook all of those things up, not just your pre-sales activity, your marketing activity, not just your on-site experience, but also ensuring that it's connected to your CRM activity and your brand loyalty and customer retention strategies as well. And lifetime and nurturing lifetime value is one of the most important things you can do if you're looking to build out a D2C strategy. So think about loyalty schemes, because we know that customers who enroll in loyalty schemes are 47% more likely to make a second purchase. You can actively market to them. I see great emails all the time, targeted specifically to me, that are very personalized, that are very timely, and using the data, that first party data to their benefit to help target me with relevant offers. And we know that repeat purchases lead to increased revenue as well. A bit of analysis we did recently for one of our clients found that by the time we get to the 3rd purchase, you're doing 3 times the revenue per purchase versus the first purchase, because you've built a level of brand loyalty, you've built up a level of expectation, you fulfilled those expectations, which we're going to come on to in our final point. And just by spending the time and the effort on the money on building that brand loyalty will pay dividends going forward. And you're not paying those 60% increased costs in terms of trying to acquire new customers. So that's really important. And it also links back to our point at the very start around first-party data strategies. And there's lots of new first-party data platforms that are coming out. Some of you no doubt aware of Google Analytics 4, where now that's moving to a completely different way of measurement, and that will be using AI to model who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, and it will help power things like your Search Ad 360. So have a think about what your first-party data strategy is, what your CRM strategy is, especially if you're going into D2C, making sure you're nurturing that long lifetime value of the customer, because it will pay back in the future for sure. And the final point of our 5 points is obviously the final step of any D2C journey is fulfillment. And we know that the fulfillment expectations are sky high. Again, largely due to Amazon and ease of use of that. You need to make sure you get those first 4 things right. And if you do get them right, don't fall short at the final hurdle. If you set those expectations high, that loyalty, that lifetime value, that repeat custom, and will be lost if you don't fulfill it. So one of the things that we do in one of our services called Connect, which I'll come on to in a second, is help clients go from this very start of the journey of audience profiling, even helping with fulfillment as well. And 25% of consumers won't purchase if it's not shipped within 2 days, which is huge. And 66% will pay a premium to get products sooner. We understand the motivations of consumers, especially in this heightened D2C age, heightened online shopping age, obviously created by the pandemic, and there are long-term shifts in consumer behavior that will be very difficult to break because of it. And one of the final things I will also say about fulfilling expectations, alongside the obvious things about ensuring you're meeting their expectations, is actually keeping your marketing and logistics connected. And one of the things we see with lots of clients is, okay, well, we've done all of those first 4 things brilliantly. We are driving a lot more D2C sales than we've seen previously, or we're driving more D2C sales than we were expecting. and then your logistics isn't able to catch up. What you're then doing is not fulfilling those expectations set, and that lifetime value will again be diminished. So one of the things we often do with our clients is actually have regular discussions, systems in place that help us understand whether a warehouse, a distribution system is at 100% capacity or operating above 100% capacity. Because if we're spending money on marketing or on acquisition driving activity, and we're spending money on that, but we're not fulfilling those expectations, that's going to have an impact. So you can ramp up or ramp down according to your logistical challenges that you might have. That feedback loop is really important. And as I said at the very beginning, there are lots of considerations to this whole process. But I would say those 5 are things you should really be putting your focus on if you're looking to pivot from that B2B into doing some more D2C activity. And just to finish off, I mentioned this briefly earlier. We have a service at Equimedia called Equimedia Connect that we launched at the beginning of the pandemic. This is basically helping B2B brands or brands whose distribution networks were completely shut down or broken during pandemic, where we actually provide a full service end-to-end solution for brands selling D2C. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, it starts at audience profiling, which is why we're offering those 2 free audience profiling audits for anybody looking to get started in D2C and looking for a good foundation to grow from. And it goes through customer acquisition, website experience creation, product dispatch, and even fulfillment if you have fulfillment challenges, and obviously the brand loyalty parts of that as well. So if you're looking to improve your online shop, improve your sales funnel, increase your basket values, your LTVs, and expand your marketing activities, see where you can sell more efficiently, as I said at the start, please do get in touch with me. We'd be delighted to speak to you.
Okay, thank you, Ross. We make time for question and answers. So let's see if the participants have any questions now. Okay, so do you have one question? So a couple of questions here. One is just recent. Do you have some specific tips for multi-channel attribution without third-party cookies? For that particular example, you mentioned, how did you know that it was YouTube to be attributed for the 20% influence on sales? I think this is more for you. You have it in the conversation chat, Ross.
Yeah, I can see. Thanks, Tassos, for that question. A good question. One of the things that we do for clients, especially when we're running multi-channel strategies across PPC, YouTube, Facebook, wherever it might be, doing something like ad serving massively helps. Ad serving comes at a slightly additional cost, but it helps you attribute your sales across multiple channels. So using double-click, floodlight containers, ensuring that you're able to link all of your activity back to a single source of truth within a session, and within specific look-back windows is important. So using something like double-click can be, and using ad serving tools is something that can be really useful, and there are lots of other ones available. And again, just get in contact if you'd like to talk about that in slightly more detail. Without third-party cookies is more of a challenge, because it's one of those things of Google's even pushed back, as you would have seen in the news, like the retirement of third-party cookies keeps getting moved, largely because they don't know what the end solution is going to be. Now, if you look in places like Google Analytics 4, so if you've got Universal Analytics set up, which is GA3, and you're looking GA4, and look into what's going to happen in the future, it will be an AI-based model whereby first-party data is collected through the system. The system looks at that data, profiles what they've done, where they've been, how they've interacted, and it will build lookalikes based on that. And when it builds lookalikes based on that, you'll then be able to target people that look like that person based on artificial intelligence. That's the example within GA4. There are multiple other platforms that exist and are going to exist that do something similar to that. So hopefully that answers your question around multi-channel attribution. But it's a very complicated subject, and a really important challenge to overcome going D2C, to ensure you understand the role each channel plays, and stops making decisions of we shouldn't spend money over here because we're not seeing any direct sales. However, you see the impact on, say, running programmatic display on, okay, well, it's increased our brand searches month on month by 50%. It's increased searches of these specific terms that we're marketing on by 60%. We can see that in the SERPs, and we can see that reflected in our brand PPC clicks. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Ross. I think I'm going to pick one or two more questions. What metrics can be used to measure D2C or B2C success within B2B ecosystems? I can pick up this one. The Ibexa platform actually allows to integrate the B2C, the B2B websites from dealers, reseller integrators with the main repository of content with the main platform. So the good way is to track the activity within all the ecosystem. So you will measure how many leads have been injected into the ecosystem, how many visitors have been sent to the point of sales, and eventually how many opportunity and additional revenue has been created by this B2C strategy injected in the B2B ecosystem. I remember on top of my head, for example, that CMS Law was through better integration, they have increased the participation on their website by 20. And this was driven by the enrichment of the content that was made available in many languages to many potential clients in many countries. So that's again one way to measure those synergies between B2C and B2B. I hope this answered the question. And the final one is more for you, Ross, is how can you mitigate the risk of cannibalization between D2C and B2B? I think so. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, another good question, which I think I covered off briefly at the start of the audience segment of the 5 steps that I went over. But fundamentally, mitigating the risk of cannibalization all comes back to understanding the difference in audiences, understanding the difference in intent between the two different audiences, and then providing omnichannel experiences tailored to those slightly different intents. A B2B intent and a D2C intent are two very different things. Intent is obviously a word that gets thrown around a lot from an SEO perspective. Because SEO and intent are intrinsic these days. You want to provide organic landing pages, and Google are looking for organic landing pages that fit intent as well. So really spending some time on your personas, on your user flows, understanding the differences between what motivates your B2B and D2C audiences, and then ensuring that your marketing strategies from awareness through to conversion fit those different types of intent. There will always be a slight risk of cannibalization, but as long as you have those foundational blocks in place, it should be less so.
Okay, thank you so much, Ross, for this very comprehensive presentation and answers. So as a wrap-up, I think that we try to show how B2C does not conflict with B2B, how it creates synergies without eventually cannibalization. We have seen also that there is a good choice of B2C models that can be injected in the B2B ecosystem, and that measurement again is the key to measure success. And there is a practical technology which makes this possible, which is this digital experience platform, and there is the practical experience which also facilitates those developments. And so I would like to close this webinar. And if you have any further comment or question, also myself will be happy to engage into one-to-one conversations after this webinar. Thank you very much for attending, and see you in another series of webinar, possibly on the
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.